I am the host, and tonight my guest is Nicholas Ruhl. He is the Prepare Like a Pro strength and conditioning coach intern looking after our Caulfield Grammarians men's program. He's also a qualified exercise physiologist, currently full-time employment at PISA as an exercise scientist. Before we start tonight's episode, for those new to the podcast, our mission here at Prepare Like a Pro is to empower aspiring athletes and staff with practical knowledge from some of the industry's most inspiring individuals and to strengthen the AFL community. If you like the show, please show your support by following us on Instagram and subscribing to the podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Thanks for jumping on tonight, Nick.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Looking forward to our chat, mate. Let's dive right to the beginning of your journey. At what age did you discover you had a passion for strength and conditioning?
Well, probably strength and conditioning probably came a little bit later, but probably passion for health fitness probably came a little bit earlier.
Yep.
So probably started training in the gym around 16 or so, and then got PT qualified. And then I started my undergrad degree after that. So to be honest, strength and conditioning wasn't a massive passion of mine until probably about third year, where I did my internship hours. So that was at Rise High Performance in Roeville. And it wasn't probably to that point that I really started to understand what a strength and conditioning coach does. So it was really good being down there. And then from that opportunity, being able to work with Eastern Rangers, the under 16s, that opportunity came up. And so moving on to there, that was actually fantastic. Being able to work with a bunch of boys who were really driven to play footy, and just to see at that age how driven and mature they were, which was fantastic. Just a great vibe to be around.
Yep. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, mate. So before you started your degree, personal training, take us through where you saw your vision and what was your motive behind doing a bachelor's degree at that point?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So probably, I think when everyone starts training when they're 16, 18, always they're getting the big chest, big arms. That's probably where I was all set.
Yep.
But then as I've gone through my uni degree, it kind of changes your focus, going to more that educated approach, not needing to smash yourself. And I always had a bit of an injury background of injuries. And that's where that field, that exercise sport science background, because I kind of wanted to know why I was kind of getting injured more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of led on to be able to wanting to educate myself, and then which allowed me to help others in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, with the rise in high performance, for those studying their sports science degree, and that resonates with them, like they've started with their own agenda to try and better themselves and improve their body or improve their performance from an athlete, whatever their agenda is, and then they started to focus more on the coaching side. How did you get your foot in the door with that internship program? Was that organised through the university? Did you have a contact within that space? Take us through how that started.
It more talked with the career advisors at uni, so they kind of led me in a direction of two different facilities, so which I had to kind of email out and contact. So just being successful at Rise, which I was really stoked about. They had I think the first day we went through some educational stuff, and they almost just had me hooked from that point. I was just like, I have no idea what they're talking about, and I want to learn what they are talking about.
Right, and what were their clientele at the time? Who were they typically?
Rise, they work with Roval Sports Academy. So working with high school students in their specific sports as well. So being able to build on their current sports and athletic development, their strength and conditioning, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and you mentioned at that time that was sort of a light bulb moment where you understood what a strength and conditioning coach did and how that can sort of differ to a personal trainer. How did they sell it, or what did they show you that excited you about strength and conditioning?
I think it's training smart. You push when you need to be pushed, but it's not about being smashed all the time. So it's more of an educated, more tailored to a specific group of people, depending on, I was more focused on the group team. So be able to work with a group of people and be able to use educational and things you've learned to actually help the team versus just trying to smash them as hard as you possibly can just to make them throw up, basically.
Yeah. 100%.
So I think that's the biggest difference between the two from that point.
Yeah, well said, mate. And then the Eastern Rangers, how did you go about getting that experience?
That was a great experience. So like I said, just being able to be around that group, it was almost motivating for me to be down there just because how motivated they were to be there. So being able to take on that role, it just opened the doors a little bit more to actually what a strength and conditioning coach does, setting up more of the conditioning side of things and the strength side of things, where Rise is more of the strength side of things. So having that nice balance of strength and conditioning in two different facilities just kind of helped me learn, and like still got a lot to learn, but I feel like from that point it's been a steep incline of learning.
Yeah, I love that approach. It's a good gym for the developing S&Cs or personal trainers to listen to. So often the conditioning side of our title is missed and undervalued, where we do, and I know for myself, I was guilty of it, spending a lot of time and doing a lot of courses around the strength and power side of things, and it wasn't until I started working football where you start learning about energy system development and load management, and almost bringing in the sports science side of things, how to run fun warm-ups, dynamic warm-ups, and prepare the athletes for a high quality session. Or like you mentioned before, understand how to, it's not all about smashing yourself and vomiting, but it's a deliberate approach and periodized programming and all these sort of things. Going through that experience at Eastern Rangers, did that, did you learn programming through practice and through experimenting, and what were your biggest lessons in terms of developing yourself as a coach that you didn't get from university?
I think working with Nick Burton, he was a high performance manager for the under 16s. Working with him closely definitely taught me quite a few things, and then also working with yourself from this year, it's even taught me even more in terms of the conditioning side. It's just learning, like you said, the energy systems and how to develop them versus just going for 10K run like we used to be told to do. Go for a long run to get fitter versus, all right, maybe let's do 200 meters, 5 reps, and we'll try and do that for, depending on the person, every so often.
Yeah. And when you've got that, like if it's Mick or myself, how do you go about making the most of those opportunities and experiences? Let's say with Eastern Rangers, what was your role there, and how did you make the most of it? For strength and conditioning coaches that are tuned in, what do you think is the best way to make the most of those internship sort of early day experiences?
I think just taking it all in is probably the biggest thing. Just trying to be a sponge, like absorb all of it, write things down, try and learn more about it. But probably one of the best things I learned from the Eastern Rangers is it's about almost educating the players as well while you're doing things, versus just doing it with them. Like you want to let them know the benefits of why they're doing the runs, why they are going to get a little bit tired, so that you've got a little bit more buy-in. So there's a couple of people on the socials who talk a lot about the buy-in. So I think just from personal experiences playing with a footy club, probably towards when I finished, is we had a coach that just made us smashed us and used running as a penalty for not completing, the drills as the way they wanted to. So I think letting the players know this isn't about a punishment, this is actually help developing yourself. I think having that approach where we can educate players, which of all ages, it's not about punishment, but this is about your benefit. And that's why I haven't enjoyed some parts of the industry where that still is a little bit of a stigma, where we kind of want to move away from that, but really want to educate why we're doing what we're doing, just to get that extra buy-in so we can actually get the most out of our players.
Oh, thank you so much, man. That's refreshing to hear, and it's I couldn't agree any more. Like the power of why, no matter what you're trying to do when you're working with a team in any environment is so powerful, and to be able to present in front of a group is something that you probably don't get as a personal trainer, because you do work in a one-on-one. So that's another skill set that you've mentioned there, and why it's so invaluable to get these experiences working in teams and groups, and being able to work on communication and the art of that, and how that can have a direct influence on the program. You mentioned noting things down and potentially it's like journaling. What type of things would you write down? Is that something that you're doing throughout the session, as the session's live? Is it after? Is it the next day? Take us through your process on what you note down.
So I actually have a book that I go to. So like you say, almost like a journal. So it depends on the scenario. Obviously, if you're in the middle of a session, you're not going to want to run off and write in your book. But it's just something that resonated with you more so through the session. You're like, that makes a lot of sense. Or doing seminars, taking down vital notes that you think is going to be really beneficial. Even cues in the strength room, just making sure actually, that one works really well. So anything at that time where, you can probably use that later and you find it really beneficial, I'll probably just take a note of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome, mate. And what are some other things that you do to develop your knowledge?
Well, doing the masters this year was a massive thing. So I probably got better at researching. So looking
Yep.
at papers more effectively, the books. I love my books. So just getting into some of my books, like Periodization Training for Sport is a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
And just networking, like talking to yourself, talking to others. I think socials is a really good one. I think it's undervalued in a lot of ways. You can turn your socials into an educational platform if you're following, depending on who you follow. But I think that can be a very undervalued area of education.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it does can get a bad rap, but I think probably in the fitness industry you'll have a little bit of everything. But ultimately, if you know what to filter and what's relevant for you, it can be really, really beneficial. And it's probably something as an industry we've got a lot better at providing value through socials. What are your favorite platforms? Is it Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube? What do you feel is the
Probably
most impactful?
Probably Instagram, probably when I go to probably most, just probably out of habit. So I've just turned it into an area where if I go into it, it's going to be something that's beneficial rather than just like mindlessly scrolling and taking, looking at what's going around. And YouTube has quite a lot of good podcasts as well. So that's probably my two main areas that I go to.
Yep, yep. And then going back to career progression. So you mentioned your masters. How did you go about deciding to do your masters in exercise physiology? And you mentioned developing research. What are you hoping to get out of that course? And take us through the full time job that you're doing as well with Kaiser and how that's helped.
Yeah, so that's actually a pretty funny story how I started. I didn't get the marks I wanted, and I didn't get accepted into Deakin for exercise physiology because that's where I wanted to go towards the end of my undergrad. So I didn't get in there. I took some time off, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just give business a go because at the start of my degree I was on the double degree,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got about a semester and a half in, and then I was just sitting there one day during class because halfway through COVID, and I just wanted to read my books, and my girlfriend, she was just like, if you're so interested in it, why don't you just give it another crack? So I was like, yeah, cool. Okay, so I think the next week I left the uni and just did a Hail Mary and just applied for as many unis as I could.
Yep.
Luckily enough, I got accepted into a couple, which I was stoked about, and then I ended up getting into La Trobe, which was amazing. So did it in 12 months, which was a bit of a shotgun thing.
Amazing. Yeah.
So that was great. So, and because of that, you just have your 3 placements. You're learning off each supervisor, which is amazing. Everyone has their different approaches to how they go about it, and I had 3 very different approaches. And sometimes the experiences aren't always beneficial, but you can always take something from it. But through that, I about 2 weeks before my last placement, I actually had a chat to the guys at Kaiser, and so I was able to get a position at Kaiser because they only opened up end of November.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to get a position as an exercise scientist with the progression to exercise physiologist when the accreditation came through.
Yeah, good. Geez,
So I was
that's
like,
a critical move you made there, thanks to the girlfriend and your hard work
yeah,
and determination, mate. That's well done. That's fantastic.
it was very, very different to what I was almost expecting at the time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's great. And to be able to be in an environment where you can see growth. How important is that for you? Like you mentioned, your exercise science at the moment, and then once you can grow into the exercise physiology. Is that once you get accreditation? Is it?
yeah. When I get accreditation, just have to do a couple of things for Kaiser, and then I'll move into the exercise physiology role.
Yep.
So it's probably going to be another 2-3 weeks, so not too far to go. But yeah, to be in a place of learning and development is probably important for me. I get bored quite easily, I find, so I can't sit down for too long. So if I'm always immersed in something, learning or growing, I'm probably a really happy person.
Yep. Yep. And that you mentioned the work as an exercise scientist. What would be a typical day at Kaiser?
Yeah,
What does it
so
look like?
it's showing people. So you've got different ones. We've got how we can show people how to use the equipment because it's a bit different to what you'd see in a normal gym. Some of the equipment. So about showing setups, but also just working with a large variety of a population. So we have 30-minute sessions where we're able to push individuals for whatever outcomes it could be. It could be for osteoporosis. It could just be for general strength or getting a little bit older. So they want to maintain their function. So just going through that on a daily basis, which is really good because you get to work with a lot of different individuals with a lot of different backgrounds. So it just makes you have to be a little bit more cautious, I would say, in how you deliver your sessions to them.
Right. Okay. And then for those that are members at the gym, how does it differ to like a Fitness First or maybe a PT studio?
So depending on how you go, you can either work with an exercise scientist one-on-one. If not, you can still train by yourself. But basically, the pathway to train at Keyser is you'll have an initial consultation with a physiotherapist or an exercise physiologist before moving into some training. So from that, you get shown how to use the equipment by the exercise scientist. And then if you wish to continue, you can continue having supervised training. If not, we'll have review sessions every 20 sessions or so, just to make sure that everything's in check. And then if we need to make any changes, that we can.
Yep. Yeah, and you've mentioned like the experience you got in the weights room from personal training, and then working in football, the team conditioning and periodization, load management, and then now at Kaiser, is it rehabilitation that you're developing and honing that craft? Is it more strength and power based stuff? What are some skills that you feel like you're improving by being in that environment?
I think having both Caulfield and Keyser together works really well because what you're not getting in one, you're almost getting in the other. So at Keyser is probably more that rehabilitation aspect of it, educational on that side. But then at Caulfield, you're kind of building up the strength and conditioning, more so on the conditioning side at the moment, unfortunately with COVID. So I think that's why I really want to kind of work with the two, having a clinical side on one side, then also having a sports performance side on another side. So it's just some really nice balance. One, you got to bring a lot of energy, and one's got to be a very clinical mindset to it. So it's just nice balance by the end of the week.
Yeah. And on the Caulfield Grammarians note, it's only been a short time, the pre-Christmas. But what have you enjoyed about running that program, and what are you looking forward to for the 2022 season?
So just working with the boys down there, they're absolutely fantastic. So I think at the start it was more about getting that buy-in, having that new face down there, which is always a challenge, which comes back to trying to get that buy-in. And because it is such a short time, having new face down is a little bit more challenging. But it's just been really good just to continue working on, even just setups of the drill. Like how do you do this most effectively so to get the boys most out of the boys, like communicating with the coaches to make sure that everyone's kind of understanding what everyone's doing in the session. So it's probably more of that communication side, and then just taking the boys through the session as well, and then keeping the data on them as well.
Yeah, and well done, mate. Like everyone's raved about the work that you've brought, how thorough you are and organised with your preparation, but also your ability to communicate and connect with the athletes, which as you mentioned, from a buy-in point of view, is so important. Particularly leading into the Christmas period, because obviously it can be a danger period for footballers, 3 to 4 weeks where you don't see them and all that hard work can be lost. With that communication and connection piece, what were some things that for strength and conditioning coaches that want to get better in that area that you found helpful to get success in that area?
I think just having a plan just makes a massive difference. Tips from yourself, making sure it's printed out, coming down. So you know what you're doing. The players can look at it if they want to, but if they don't want to, that's fine as well. So as long as you know what you're going to be doing and you're prepared, having that communication with the coach, so you've both got expectations of each other of what's going to be happening in the session, it makes the world of difference.
Yeah, preparation. Love it. Awesome, man. It's a good gem and one that absolutely is so important. If we're more prepared than the athletes, then they'll notice that and that care. Not only will they buy in, but also they'll bring more effort, and therefore intensity and quality will be brought up. So thank you for sharing that, mate. Looking back over your career now, what's a memory that you look back fondly and you're proud of?
That's a challenge. So it's probably been a stack. So working as a personal trainer for about 4 years, you get the relationships you build. Like I'm still in contact with a lot of the clients that I trained when I left. I've left there for about almost over a year, so still being in contact with them. So it's hard to pick out one moment, but there's definitely some that stand out more. So for instance, having one of my one of my clients transforming their bodies and prolonging surgery. That's probably a massive one. Just on their knee, having clients, just running, doing runs with clients, 10K runs with clients, half marathons with clients. Probably the things you probably remember most doing with them when they, they don't think they can do it themselves, and then they rope you into doing it with them. Yep. So there's definitely a lot of things over the career that have stand out, but it's hard to pick out one major at the moment. But hopefully in the next couple of years that might change and start to progress a little bit further.
Yeah. But it's the people side that that you enjoy the most of
yeah, I think so. Yeah, when you get that close connection to them, and you can see them develop from day one to day X, and you're like, oh, that's just really cool to see someone develop the way that you have.
Yeah. And what about on the flip side? What's a challenge that you've faced that you've learned and grown from?
Probably talking and selling myself. That's probably the hardest thing that I think any coach struggles with at the start. Being able to talk about yourself is the biggest challenge, and I think everyone still struggles with it on a day-to-day basis. But it's also just being confident in your own abilities. That over time it starts to make a lot more sense that you trust, what you're talking about, versus you think you know what you're talking about. So I think just time and development helps with that.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, mate, for your open and honesty on those two. Like you mentioned, they are challenging questions, but I appreciate you sharing insight there. We'll go into the lighter part of the podcast, the get to know you personal side, mate. So these runs are a lot easier, and we can have some fun with them. First one is, which movie or TV series has impacted you the most, and why?
Oh, I'm a bit boring in that sense, to be honest. So I can't sit still long enough to enjoy a TV series or a movie. Yeah. Unfortunately. But if I was to say one, it's probably the sporting movies, like Coach Carter. Yeah. Like it probably comes back to that coaching side of thing again. So that's probably had the biggest impact on me, those movies.
Yeah. And what about favorite inspirational quote or life motto?
It's probably don't be upset with the results you didn't get with the work you didn't do.
Yeah, I like that one. And then in your work life, what are your pet peeves? What makes you angry?
Oh, this one's probably the hardest one. It's great being in a new facility, so there's no pet peeves at the moment. But probably, when I used to work, there used to be a lot of quotes thrown around on a day-to-day basis. Probably too many. So I'm all about a couple of quotes here and there, but there was a lot of quotes thrown around on a regular basis. That was probably my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, a lot of talk and no action, eh?
Well, there's action, but it's just a lot of talking too. So I was just like,
it was out of whack. Okay, very good. What's your favorite way to spend your day off?
Oh, probably just going and doing something. So today I was able to go to the Yangs, just go for a walk around there for about an hour and a half, which was really good. Just going, doing something. Probably my favorite thing.
Outdoor sort of stuff.
Outdoors, adventurous, doing something new that you haven't done before.
Yep. And then on a similar sort of note, this is a COVID-free world, of course. Favorite holiday destination and why?
Probably Yarrawonga. We used to camp up at the camp right next to the river a few years ago now. But I'd love to get back up there at some stage. Just need to get a full drive. It's just a great time. Had a lot of memories growing up. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, mate. And last question for 2022, what are you most excited about? What's on the horizon for you?
Just career development.
Yeah,
that's probably my biggest one.
It sounds like you've got a busy schedule with your progression from exercise scientist, exercise physiologist, and then at the Caulfield Grammarians. How will the role, you mentioned that there's progression there in a few weeks' time when that eventuates, what will that mean for you? Does it change what you do day to day, or does it keep it the same?
Definitely change. There'll be some layover, some will be the same, but I think it's going to be a little bit more responsibility, which I'm excited for, working with more chronic health conditions.
Oh, right. Okay. So you'll be dealing with some more challenging cases.
Yeah, some complexity with the cases as well. It could be standard just in terms of education on diabetes, but it could be a little bit more complex than that as well.
Fantastic. Awesome, mate. And for those that want to follow you, mention the importance of socials. Where's the easiest place for people to get in contact if they've got any questions or queries from the podcast
Yeah,
or just in general?
probably on Instagram for which is Rules of Fitness on Instagram, or just Nick Ruhl on Facebook.
Yep. Awesome, mate. Well, thank you so much again for jumping on and all the great work you're doing with the Caulfield Men's program. It's a serious program. They're great athletes there, and it's a club that's been doing really, really well. So they're very happy to have you part of the club. And yeah, it means a lot on the Prepare Like a Pro team to have you part of our family as well, mate. So thanks for jumping on and all the good work you're doing, and really looking forward to seeing your career progress, not only in 2022, but onwards and upwards, mate. So thanks again.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Awesome. And thanks for tuning in, guys. For everyone that tuned in live, you can follow our podcast on all your favorite podcasts, streaming, Spotify, iTunes, and all the rest. And if you want to watch the YouTube episode, we'll announce a 6-minute highlight, which will be premiered the night before we release this episode. And in terms of our next guest, we'll have a couple that we've tuned in. Our new live segment for 2022 is going to be Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. So stay tuned via Instagram for our upcoming guests on the live episode. And if you have any questions or queries, feel free to direct message us on our socials or email me at jack@preparelikeapro.com, where every Sunday I live stream and answer your questions at 6 p.m. So I'll see you guys on the next episode.